Within a vast, mysterious universe, there spins a small planet, home to a human family that has come far in technological accomplishment, but has yet to coexist in peace, harmony, and equity. The struggle for equal human rights is ongoing. Food for Thought Productions is pleased to present a passionate fighter for human rights for all persons. Parvin Darabi is the sister of Dr. Homa Darabi, who set herself on fire in the public square and died to call attention to the plight of women in Iran. In her honor, Ms. Parvin Darabi established the Dr. Homa Darabi Foundation, an international organization that defends the rights of women and children against religious, cultural, and social abuse. Ms. Darabi spoke recently at the Center for Inquiry in Los Angeles about the deplorable conditions of life for women under Islamic rule.
I stood at the edge of fire or hell, and the majority of people going in it were women. This is a quote from Prophet Muhammad, that he was standing by hell and majority of people going into it were women. Now, that is where the animosity toward women begins. Why would all the majority of women be going to hell? For what reason? Nobody knows. The problem in Islam is that women basically have no rights. And what it says is that Muhammad said that God created men and women, but then preferred men to women and gave the responsibility of women to men. And a woman as a child should be under care of her father, and then when she gets married, she should be under care of her husband. Then, of course, if she doesn't have a father, then it's the brother, and if she doesn't have a brother, it is the cousin, and then her son, and then grandson. And if she doesn't have any of these, then she's the responsibility of the Muslim community. And if the community doesn't take care of her, they all have sinned. So what? They have sinned. What do you do with it? This poor woman, all her life, I mean, a woman is capable. We have seen capable women. They're all over the place. And we go to a school, we get educated, we do things, and we can stand on our own 2 feet, we can raise our children, and but somebody come and says, no, you can't do any of this stuff, and you have to stay home and you have to bear children, and if, some man has to take care of you, and if they don't do it well, you can go on welfare and be on welfare roll, and if the community doesn't take care of you, then they have all sinned and go to hell, but you go to hell with them too, so what is there? And that is the basis for all the things they do to women. Now, right now in Afghanistan, as many of you may have learned about, women, children, girl children could not go to school. Women cannot work. And they have sent all the female doctors home. They are forbidden to practice medicine. And male doctors are not allowed to touch women. And I heard the other day that when a woman gets sick now in Afghanistan and she's in a bad shape and they have to rush her to the doctor, she has to go with a man that is called their mahram in Islam, man like your father, husband, brother, and so on. And then the man would lay on the table the doctor would examine the guy, and the woman has to stand behind the curtain and explain to her mahram where she's hurting. And then the doctor has to examine the guy and figure out what they do to this woman. I mean, this is absurd, that what they are doing to women in the name of God and religion. Now, they just, about a month or so ago, they passed the same law in Iran, that the health care should be segregated and women should only be seen by female doctors. Of course, in Iran, they haven't sent women home. I mean, there are some female doctors that can take care of women. But the problem is that in these countries, there are no female doctor specialists, like there is not even one female surgeon. So if the woman needs the operation, a man has to do it. But then, well, so what? If a man cannot touch her, what happens? So she dies. And this is a major problem in many Islamic countries, because if you don't allow the women to go to school, to learn, to educate and become doctors and surgeons and dentists and so on, then how would you have, how would the majority of population, I mean there are 50% at least women, how do they get health care? Now then, the law in Islam is that the divorce is the right of a man, and a man can divorce his wife anytime he wants to. And according to Islamic laws, he's only responsible to sustain her living for 100 days. And that is that to make sure that she's not pregnant, because if she was pregnant when they divorced, then he has to take the child away. Now, women cannot get custody of their children. In case of a divorce or the death, the child would go to the father or the father's family. Of course, a girl stays with her mother till age 7 and a boy till age 2, and then they are taken away. And one of the cruel things that they do is that they would not then give mother visitation right. So a lot of time the women lose their children and they don't know what happened to them. Just a month ago, I had a friend coming from Chicago and visited me, and she said, my mother's coming to America and I'm going to take off 3 months and want to spend all the time with her because I'm seeing my biological mother after 45 years. This kid was 6 months old when the mother divorced, her father divorced her mother and took the child, and then he remarried and she was raised by this other woman, and she had no idea till when she was about 19 or 20 that this woman was not her biological mother and she had a mother. And then she contacted her, but they could never meet because she had come to America, and then, finally they were able to meet with each other. But then, in Islam, a man can marry 4 women at the same time. And of course, this is in the Sunni religion. Now, in the Shia religion, or Shia sect of the Muslim religion, a man can have 4 permanent wives and 1,000 on temporary basis. And a temporary marriage is that a man goes to a woman and says, I want to marry you for half an hour for $50 or $5, and if the woman says okay, then they are married. And when the time is over, so is the marriage. And And the 4 wives to have is not during lifetime. A man can marry 4 women, be with them, divorce all 4 at once, and marry 4 more at the same time, and on and on. And the problem is that when you don't allow women to gain economic freedom, to be able to stand on their own 2 feet, then out of necessity to exist, women do agree to marry men, with 3 wives or 2 wives or something. And it is so, in my view, it's so humiliating. It is so horrible. Just think about it. That a man would put these 4 women in the same house in 4 different rooms, and then he goes one night to this one, and one night to that one, and one night to that one, and then they say, of course, a lot of Muslims say that when Prophet Muhammad said that men can have 4 wives, he also told them that they should treat them equally. And since no man can treat 4 women equally, therefore they cannot marry 4 wives. But then at the same time, Prophet himself had something like between 24 to 46 wives, and he never treated them equally. And he liked apparently the one girl that when he was 52 after his wife died, he married this 7-year-old girl, and then she was his favorite wife throughout the 13 years that they lived together. And then when he died, he made all his wives mother of all Muslims, so that then this woman could not remarry, because a Muslim cannot marry their own mother. And so basically, the way it is that women just are piece of property, or like your car or your furniture, and women have to live where their husband wants them to live. So a woman has no right to say where they want to live, or the husband decides which house to buy, which furniture to get, who to socialize with, the friends. Everything is decided by the husband. Another law that they have is that a woman must unconditionally be ready to meet her husband's sexual desires. So a woman can never say no to her husband, and if she says no, then he can deny her food, shelter, clothing, whatever, because this is not allowed. But then at the same time, there is a law that says if a Muslim man sleeps with his wife 1 night out of every 4 months, or out of every 120 days, then he has fulfilled his obligation of being a husband. And the woman cannot then go ask for a divorce, because a woman is only allowed to go to court and ask for a divorce if her husband abandons her and doesn't come around. So if he comes around 1 night out of every 4 months, then she cannot complain about it. And then women cannot leave the country, cannot travel, go visit friends, go anywhere without permission from their husbands, or their sons or fathers. And it is so bad that in Saudi Arabia, if the 80-year-old grandmother wants to go out of the house and the only male relative she has is her 12-year-old grandson, she has to take him with her, or she has to have a note from him saying it is okay for the grandmother to go out. And in many countries, women cannot get hotel rooms. And single women cannot rent an apartment. You cannot live by your own. Now, some countries like that used to be secular countries, secular Islamic countries, and like Iran used to be, women had some freedom. They could drive a car, they could get a job, they could do things. But since Iran and Afghanistan became Islamic, they took many of the rights away from them. But in Iran, women fought very hard, and now they are allowed to work, drive a car, but they have to be covered. And the cover, you all know, Muslim, it's from head to toe with all black fabric, and children as young as 6 or 7 years of age have to do that. Well, I can talk here till tomorrow morning about all these atrocities done to women in the name of God and religion. But if you have questions, I would be more than happy to answer.
How do the men feel about this treatment of women?
Well, I can't really answer for a man, because to me this is so inhuman what they are doing. This was happened in Afghanistan and happens in Iran, and like it is so simple to get a woman stoned to death in these countries, because you can always, somebody can come and say that a woman, make an allegation that a woman had an affair, and only 4 men are needed to go and testify. Now, according to Quran, 4 just men, of course, you never know what is the definition of just men, but 4 just men should go to court and testify that they have seen this woman in the act of adultery with a man. And you all know, and a lot of time, a lot of Muslims that support these kind of laws, they tell you, listen, how can a man and a woman go and have sex in front of 4 men? So this is an impossible thing. But they never look at it that the man wants to get rid of the woman, and what does he want to do? He would go and get paid 4 men some money and say, come and testify. And they testify, and courts are like 5 minutes. And then the woman is charged with adultery, and of course the punishment with adultery is a stoning to death. And they take them and then stone them to death. And they have done like 35 to 37 people so far got stoned in Iran. And when I watched, they brought a video of the last stoning that had happened in Iran that was taken by a photographer from Sweden. And when I looked at it, and I saw all these men standing around, and they have these 2 human beings wrapped like mummies in this white sheet and buried in these holes. And the way they do it, even stoning is so discriminatory toward women, because they bury a man to his waist. And if during the stoning a person can run away, then they can let them go free. But they bury women to above their chest, and with their hand in the back tied. So it's very difficult for the woman to run away. And these men would pick up this rock, and they have a law for the stone. The stone should not be as small to not hurt the person, and it doesn't have to be large that would kill at the first blow. So the person has to suffer through this thing. And what they say is, I saw these men picking up this rock and hitting these people with the head and say, Allahu Akbar. I mean, what kind of God and a religion would allow a person to pick up a rock and beat another person in the head with, and then bring and say God is great? I mean, what kind of great God is that allow people to do this? Yes.
Who decides these Islamic laws?
Everyone has come and said something about this religion as they wanted to. But if we go and read the laws of Sharia, which the Muslim countries have to live by, it's very oppressive to women. It just doesn't give women any right. Just yesterday in the LA Times, there was an article in the political section about Indonesia. And in this article, the most famous mullah in Indonesia says, and I quote from him, that it is better to wallow in mud with pigs than to shake the hand of a woman. I mean, how can anybody be so cruel? And in Indonesia, the reason everybody is against this guy Mahathir, or the president over there, is because he started giving women some freedom, and it upset the Muslim community because they just don't want to do that. Yes.
Is anything being done within Iran to change conditions?
You see, inside the country, a lot of these women that even think cannot do anything inside their own country because they're not allowed. Women are not allowed to hold meetings or have assemblies of their own because they have to have permission from their men to go to this. And a lot of times they are not allowed to do so. But there are women that, in a school, in universities, and so on and so forth, they talk to each other.
These repressive measures were instituted when Khomeini came into power. How did that happen?
The internal opposition to the Shah started from the time that Shah gave women some rights. And when he gave women the right to vote, the right, and they passed the Family Protection Act, all the religious people started being against the Shah. They didn't like this. They liked to have 4 wives, and they liked to have the permanent and temporary wives. They liked to have women inside the house. And this, when the Shah started the equality of men and women in Iran, then all the religious community began opposing him.
We've heard about so-called honor killings of women and girls by members of their own family. What's the justification for that?
Most Muslim families believe that, this is the law, that when a woman gets married, she must be a virgin. This is the requirement. And that the girls, young girls, should never have any kind of, girlfriend, boyfriend, or date a boy. But this is impossible because girls, you have neighbor next door and so on, and they sometimes fall in love. Now, the minute a girl falls in love with a guy, the brother, father, so on, has the right to kill her, to then safeguard the honor, because she has damaged the honor of the family, and they have to wash it off by her blood. Now this goes on a lot of places, and then recently, after the girls are dead, when they go and do the coroners do a examine the girls, sometimes the girls are still virgin. So really, they haven't lost it. And then when the brother, of course, kills his sister, then he becomes a hero to the community, that he has done such a great thing, that he safeguarded the family honor by the blood of his sister.
Do you have any specific suggestions for how we in this country could help?
The things that we can do is, the one is to inform people. Talk to other people, to your friends, neighbors, and things, and let them know what's going on. The other thing is that, as I said, the only thing we can do is to support these women. And one good thing that we are working on, of course, we need a lot of help from Americans, is to change the U.S. immigration law regarding asylum to have gender an automatic part of this. Right now, if somebody comes from Iran to America and says, I'm Baha'i, Jewish, Christian, Armenian, they can get asylum very quickly, no time, nothing. But women cannot. They do not accept gender. And I believe that gender should be the number one reason for women from Islamic countries to get asylum in the United States. And that is where you can write to your representative and ask them, because at least what we can do is allow some of these women to come to the United States and make a life for themselves, like we have done. Our organization, Dr. Homa Darabi Foundation, that I started, my sister name, has done this. Not that we have done it for women. Many women